rest of me. In my mind, you niggas keep stressing me. I gave the best of me to the best of me, so here's the rest of me. I gotta get my mind right. Yeah, I gotta get my mind right. Talking to the devil every day. This is my fight, my fight. I'm cooking, baby, be the salt in my life, my light. This sound is for the people that want that crank from the beefo. I got issues when it come to making beats though. I can only bounce the heat, spit the 1-2s like I'm 3-4. Different people counting up the revo. Should've asked the president who would he vote. I got things on my mind I can revoke. I got things on my mind I can revoke. Rappers talking free smoke. Ask them what they want from the people. Or the women in their life, what do she know? Treat them how you treat them, niggas need hoes. No apologies, niggas need growth. But understand, these are women first. We hope we don't make the same mistakes in the sequel. Baby, heard your flow, said please go. What else do you need, bro? Baby, put the blame on me. Most of these other rappers spitting lame for free. Female artists out here spitting flames for free. Catching charges for you niggas, H-O-E. Baby, put the blame on me. Most of these other rappers spitting lame for free. Female artists out here spitting flames for free. Catching charges for you niggas, H-O-E. Baby, put the blame on me. Most of these other rappers spitting lame for free. Female artists out here spitting flames for free. Catching charges for you niggas, H-O-E. Baby, put the blame on me. Most of these other rappers spitting lame for free. Female artists out here spitting flames for free. Catching charges for you niggas, H-O-E. You spitting lame for free? Yeah, she did her thing for me. Listen to Dame off T. Yeah, she put that thing on me. Hold up, hey, she said you change for me. I make it bounce off the rip, but the tank's on E. Gotta get $1, but the change is free. Yeah, I want a daughter, but you can't proceed. Making music, baby mama drama ain't for me. Rappers got no family, calling themselves kings. Homies in the grave, man, if he could see how you treat a sister when she's with your team. Brought up like your father, so you can't foresee. Jump if you with me, let me move your feet. Got the village on a bounce, new rules, new street. Tell me how you felt when you heard the message had to come from me, D-A-M-E. I don't claim a chain, it's A for me. Got a problem with the liner, no Cardi B. They said you want good music, we charge monthly. You must think we stupid, we are our beats. Study on the game, ladies, bring that heat. Study on the game, ladies, bring that heat. Charge it to the lame, niggas just miss me. Look at how they came for you, can't you see? Who we gon' blame, baby, just blame me. Who we gon' blame, baby, just blame me. We got a problem in the game, shame it came from me. Bet you won't believe, but you can't unsee. Ladies, put your hands up, wait for me. Show these little boys how we play MCs. Show these little boys how we play MCs. Show these little boys how we play MCs. They might start tripping. Say something, they might start tripping. Say something, they might start tripping. Yeah. Say something, they might start tripping. 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 Yeah. Say something, they might start tripping. Say something, they might start tripping. Yeah. Say something, they might start tripping. Yeah. Say something, they might start tripping. Yeah. Say something, they might start tripping. Say something, they might start tripping. Yeah. Say something, they might start tripping. Yeah. Say something, they might start tripping. Baby, put the blame on me. Most of these other rappers spitting lame for free. Female artists out here spitting flames for free. Catching charges for you niggas, H-O-E. Baby, put the blame on me. Most of these other rappers spitting lame for free. Female artists out here spitting flames for free. Catching charges for you niggas, H-O-E. Baby, put the blame on me. Most of these other rappers spitting lame for free. Female artists out here spitting flames for free. Catching charges for you niggas, H-O-E. Baby, put the blame on me. Most of these other rappers spitting lame for free. Female artists out here spitting flames for free. Catching charges for you niggas, H-O-E. Say something, they might start tripping. Say something, they might start tripping. Yeah. Say something, they might start tripping. Say something, they might start tripping. I got things on my mind I can revoke. I got things on my mind I can revoke. Rappers talking free smoke. Ask them what they want from the people. Or the women in their life, what do she know? Treat them how you treat them, niggas need hoes. No apologies, niggas need growth. But understand, these are women first. We hope we don't make the same mistakes in the sequel. Baby heard your flow, said please go. What else do you need, bro? Baby put the blame on me. Yeah, most of these other rappers spitting ain't for free. Yeah, female artists out here spitting flames for free. Yeah, catching charges with you.
What is going on, Mo? What is going on? We out here at Musician Talks with DameSmiff. What is happening? So this morning, I'm used to saying the evening because of my gaming streams, but this morning we're actually going to be talking about a lot of different things in music industry history, and much of it is going to help us understand why we're experiencing the big shifts and changes we're seeing right now. Let me check the chat, see how everybody's feeling, how you guys are doing. What's up? Shay Craig, what's happening, Mo? We in here? What's going on? I think a lot of people, when it comes to music history, it's usually learned in a vacuum, right? And I think from my understanding, what in a vacuum means is like you learn it in like small pieces, tiny little pockets, and like small understandings, limited rooms, or limited understanding in small rooms. And much of it comes down to perspective. And when we think about, like I was saying, I think yesterday, how the tech companies view musicians, we tend to think that how we view musicians is projected onto everyone else. And so as we look into these different videos that we're going to react to, let's keep that in mind and try to understand how people actually view musicians throughout this conversation. Okay, so some of what we're going to go through is the evolution of value, and we're going to look at a video by Rick Beato, and then we're going to look at the peak and cycle crash, which is actually going to be how in 1999 there were actually $14.6 billion of profit versus Napster's big presence in the digital era. Basically how like all the songs we made went from CDs and vinyls to just these tiny little pieces of data that we can, fit on our phones and iPods and things like that. So let me know in the chat if you've had an iPod and which one you had. I had the Nano. Was it the Nano? I had the little slim sleek one that didn't have a screen. I had the big fat black one that had the screen with the wheel. Somebody gave me their old one. And then yeah, some of those were cool, but I think iPods, honestly, by today's standard, are still superior listening devices, because it's like it's a hard drive specifically for music. Like there's not much is gonna do. So if you can keep high quality things on there, that'd be dope. But I think that was the issue with iPods, like to keep really high quality Blu-ray level audio on these devices, it started to get a little bit strenuous, especially with people trying to save whole movie collections and shit on their iPods and doing that. So that's crazy. And then we're going to get into payola, labels own streaming stakes and they're bypassing artists and things like that. And then the 360 deal trap, and what that really is, what it looks like, and where it came from, and little things like that. So let me know if you're ready in the chat. And always, as usual, hit the like button so that way more musicians, more fans of music, and people like us can see these videos. And also hit the subscribe button so you can see my latest videos. So let's get into the first one really quick. Let's go.
Whether you create it or whether they create it, they're going to own it. And just to show you how easy it is to model someone's voice with AI, I'm speaking to you through a voice modeling program called 11 Labs that was trained on my voice over a 4-week period. So for those of you that keep writing to me every day, I get about 20 of these a day, and they always start, Rick, I wrote a song that I think could be...
Let me pause this real quick. So he showed us in real time why it's actually getting super easy to be that folk singer that we saw a few days ago, where I was like, yeah, that's super easy to emulate. Just girl singing, guitar, probably some like, chords, trichords, maybe some sevenths, basic progressions, 2 4 5 1, it's a weird thing to realize, but it was a reality check for me when they made Tupac a hologram, because I just figured, yes, we could make holograms, but you just wouldn't do that to Tupac, But seeing as if they would do that to Tupac, they would do it to you. They would do it to this guy, similar to how would try to do it to Prince. I'm sure they would do it to Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, if they haven't done it already. But that's something you got to really consider. Like, much of what you think is going to happen to your music might not be in your control.
Or Billie Eilish, or whoever agrees to this. And I guarantee you all these labels are going to do that because they want to own the AI versions of these songs. Whether you create it or whether they create it, they're going to own it. And just to show you how easy it is to model someone's voice with AI, I'm speaking to you through a voice modeling program called 11 Labs that was trained on my voice over a 4-week period. So for those of you that keep writing to me every day, I get about 20 of these a day, and they always start, Rick, I wrote a song that I think can be a hit. I used AI to hear it because I know nothing about making music. That's literally from an email I got yesterday.
Yeah, and that's kind of what a part of the problem is that a lot of people are going to be getting into music that know nothing about music, but just like Uber did to the cab, it's going to basically shake up the market and how we create and litigate these processes. Because the person that wrote him that email isn't writing that email like we were watching yesterday where somebody was saying, I just make, I think it was Tech Coach Ralph. He says he just makes AI music for fun. He just be chilling. But he's writing that email to tell him that he thinks he has a hit record, which means he wants to put it into the American Society of Composers and Publishers and then get royalties from our pro rata pool. And knows nothing about music, admittedly. So he's not even like attempting to educate himself first and then get into it. He says, no, I think because I let AI listen to this, I'm going to skip the whole process and get right to Billboard hit status. And I think for a lot of people like that, they're going to have a rude awakening when it comes to like, oh, you got to like now be in the industry and compete. Like you got to work like most industries. But we're all going to be in a rude awakening, realizing that, like I've been saying, no one cares about how good you are at music, because you don't need to be good at music to make music you enjoy. This thing where rappers aren't rapping their lyrics on stage live in front of your face, y'all let that slide. You let rock bands play that didn't need solos, the death of the solo. We let a lot of instrumentation fall to the wayside to sacrifice or to appease digital music creation. So now you don't see large bands on extravagant productions. Like that's usually like, it feels like a circus act usually. Like there's usually like an Asian dance group coming to town, or like an Indian dance group, cultural innovation team coming in, right? You're never going to see like a just straight up, we just invest in this kind of musicality, because nobody's in it for the music. This person that emailed him wants to get a hit, and I'm sure they don't really have a tangible reason outside of the money they can probably garner from it. So they're not trying to do like a record label for the sake of like trying to make a cultural presence for AI artists and really define what it is to be an AI artist. They're not trying to create music to satisfy a taste or a genre or a demand for a flavor. They just want a hit.
With AI, I'm speaking to you through a voice modeling program called 11 Labs that was trained on my voice over a 4-week period. So for those of you that keep writing to me every day, I get about 20 of these a day, and they always start, Rick, I wrote a song that I think can be a hit. I used AI to hear it because I know nothing about making music. That's literally from an email I got yesterday. This reminds me of the best AI critique I've seen. Creative AI tools can be seen as sophisticated plagiarism software, as they do not produce genuinely original content, but rather emulate and modify existing works by artists subtly enough to circumvent copyright laws. Well, what's funny about that is that was actually written by ChatGPT. Act 2.
Yep. And I think that's going to be happening more and more and more. Like, as much as people want to like hate on AI and its presence, it actually is useful for understanding what it is. Touching a stove. Like that's all it is. It's really just touching a stove. So if a lot of people want to get footing in the understanding of AI, you got to participate in it. Like I haven't delved into like music creation with AI because I want to understand the engines more, about like how it thinks versus like the outputs, right? And so for me, it's been more so understanding an engine, and I've been focusing on Gemini. But the idea that I'm gonna just sit up here and just pump out a hit is not, I don't even think that makes sense for the value that I expect from that, right? And a hit is a lot bigger than just a song, right? You can have a hit in the sense of it's gonna be a demanding, catchy tune. But the vehicle that makes it valuable to a record label, to you as an artist, maybe your children, life insurance, and all this other stuff, doesn't really come from the notations in the song or the mix and things like that. It comes from how you market this song as a product in today's ecosystem. And today's ecosystem really is ran by technology, not culture. So to think that, oh, I got a cool song, I'm gonna just release it and then make millions of dollars without ever understanding AI and, you know, people like the dude in the email who's just gonna make a song out of thin air, you're in for a rude awakening when you realize that, no, we don't really care that you worked really hard to play your instrument well. We don't. So let's get into the next topic, and it should really dive a little bit more into this like crash cycle that we go into. So let's get it.
1999. Profits peaked that year, with $14.6 billion in sales in the US alone. There was Nirvana and Tupac, the Spice Girls, Oasis, Backstreet Boys, Britney, Mariah, and Selena.
Wow. I was there for most of this, but I was I was born in 92. So like this didn't even feel real for most of the time you were watching this because you were so young. But just look at like the technology that we're looking at. The Sony Walkman, 1981. There's a lot of different things that have happened over the years that have just shaken up things that again have had nothing to do with how well you play your instrument, right? So just think, you could be playing a song as an instrumentalist in a large orchestra, right? In 1979, and your director may be against the technology that's coming forward, just like you would be against AI coming down the line. And then you would realize in 1981, when Sony, a technology company, drops a cassette tape Walkman that can play music anywhere, and people are going to flock to it by the millions. What do you do in that situation? And that's what I'm kind of imploring here, is that you guys got to, get into the system and understand what's going on here.
And listening to, say, the Beatles was possible. Road trips got a whole lot more exciting. But it would be Sony that changed the game with the iconic
Sony Walkman.
Yes.
The music with the Sony Walkman.
With the Walkman, listeners could take music with them whenever and wherever.
I had the Walkman with the CD player with the anti-skip.
Around the same time, MTV launched, giving record labels an opportunity to market their music. For artists, that meant it wasn't just about the song anymore, but the ability to offer a whole artistic package, and that became a big focus for icons like Madonna and Michael Jackson.
And so what she's really showing you too is that it becomes bigger than the song, right? I always bring this example up because it kind of blew my mind when I learned about it, but it's the exact same logic behind selling large grand pianos to families. Like, there's no reason your dad or your mom or your grandma would need an upright or a grand piano in the house unless somebody was a musician. So if you had a warehouse full of grand pianos waiting to be sold, you couldn't just wait on musicians, because once you get this state of musicians buying grand pianos, they're pretty much all done, right? So how do you capitalize and maximize the amount of money you can make selling pianos, upright pianos and grands alike? Well, you sell the culture of playing piano. So then you start to develop this kind of like, I guess you can say, influence of saying, well, can your kid play piano? Well, no. Well, then you would need a piano in the home so they could practice when they're getting out of school. Well, who's going to play holiday music when the family gatherings come around? And you could also really easily learn music and just play along with whatever favorite church hymns you have when you come home from church. It started to kind of create these illusions that you need a piano. And so people started to buy them. And then quickly people realized, oh shit, I'm not a musician. I just paid for this piano and I don't know what to do. And what they started to do, similar to what the Sony Walkman and the record or the phone record did and the vinyl player did, we created automated pianos. I wish I could remember the name of them, but basically you remember in the 1920s and 30s where we would have these large pianos and they would just have these big wheels in the back and the wheels would rotate and the wheels would have pins on them. An engineer, again, possibly a musician, but more likely more engineer than musician, figured out a way to have the piano pluck in certain moments so that way you can actually play a song as this wheel turns. So there would just be strings here getting plucked as the wheel turns, similar to how MIDI or MIDI players and recorders would read data. Okay, you'll see it in like little toy trinkets and things like that where you wind up the toy and then it like plays music. The little bells that's tinging in there is usually like a tiny little wheel that has scripted music written on it, right? So people started buying those because they realized, well, I can't play the piano and I can't play it well if I do, and I really don't have time to sit here and learn and get good at it. So I'm gonna just buy an auto piano. And then fast forward, we stopped buying the auto piano to radios. We just started buying radios. And then when the radio stations weren't playing your favorite songs, you went to the record player, and the record player wasn't available because you were in your car riding with your baby girl trying to get a pop from the drive-in movie theater. Well, you popped in a cassette tape. And if the cassette tape wasn't really working because you were walking down the street and you couldn't really like get your little joint working, then we had CDs. You can put those into your computer, you can put those into your car like the cassette player, but they also were a higher quality sound. You can put more songs on there. You can honestly put movies on there after a certain point, and it just kept going and going and going and going. And through all of these different changes, you know what never changed was the fact that you needed to be good at music. So all the people who were actually good at music realized that, okay, that's only like part of the job now. Now I have to figure out, well, similar to the piano room, if somebody's going to listen to my song, how are they going to listen to my song? Are they going to listen to it walking to work? Are they going to listen to it studying in class? Are they going to listen to it during a workout or while cooking at home or whatever it could be, right? Now you have to like really sit and think, who is my audience? What are they doing? How are they going to listen to this? And then how do I make this valuable for me, the artist, the writer, the record label, and all these different things, as well as the tech companies outside of the music industry. Okay. And so these big changes shape how consumers consume and creators create, and the control over these changes really are dictated by culture. So if you want more music, if you want more things, if you feel like you need a piano room, you will be sold one. So I don't know if you guys are ready for this conversation, but this is still going to go back to who you are as an individual. Are you a consumer, creator, or an investor when these big changes happen?
But with the rise of the digital era came the unraveling of the cassette tape. Thanks to booming CD sales, the music industry partied like it was, 1999. Profits peaked that year, with $14.6 billion in sales in the US alone. There was Nirvana and Tupac, the Spice Girls, Oasis, Backstreet Boys, Britney, Mariah, and Selena.
And back then, there was no real way to track much of the fraud that we talked about yesterday. Like when you would see things like bot streaming and stuff like that, you don't know who sold a CD. You don't know who bought a CD. You don't know if a CD really accounts to a positive review or a positive experience. You don't know none of that. So similar to how you could just see a million streams just pop up on a record Spotify playlist, you don't know what that means. You don't know what that means at all.
Unfortunately, you can only party like it's 1999 for so long. Software like Napster paved the way for a new era of piracy. CD sales plummeted as more and more people logged on.
And that's a cultural thing. This is a cultural change. Stealing music is a cultural change. It's not a thing that's a part of the music industry. Similar, like if you're into BDSM, consent is like the primary focus of the entire process in the experience and the community. In the music industry, stealing is not a part of it. So what we started to see was that people weren't downloading these things out of being like evil, right? It was usually just some kid that wanted to just hear his song and didn't really have money, or didn't have a parent that really understood why or what they're talking about to get the song. So they just went and did it themselves, right? It was facilitated by companies that would allow it to happen because the companies weren't music companies, they were tech companies. And so in the company Napster's perspective, similar to LimeWire and FrostWire and things like that, all they're doing is transferring data, moving file from computer to computer as if they're just communicating. The issue is that the file contains copyrighted material created by an individual that has ownership of said material, that's usually alive at the same time to defend for it. So culturally, no one really cared about the rights of the copyright owner culturally. The law did because it was set before this phenomenon, right? So now you have a situation of, well, who's in trouble here? Are you a thief because you just wanted to hear Lil Wayne on LimeWire? Or is the company facilitating crime? Like, we don't know what to really, do here. So this Napster situation was very, very interesting as I was paying attention to it growing up. But I think for me, it was more so about the actual piracy than the company.
Free music didn't sit well with the music industry, and they fought long and expensive legal battles, eventually seeing some sites shut down. But the damage had already been done. Sharing music over the internet was here to stay.
I've got an iPod here.
And true, with the introduction of the iPod and MP3 players, the industry did see a boost from digital downloads, but it wasn't enough to make up for the dwindling physical format sales.
Now, I want you to just, again, follow the trend that we've been going through this week. The companies she's talking about aren't music companies. These aren't record labels. These aren't music themed companies. Music is just a subsidiary of just a corner of what the companies are doing in general. Sony does not make music products primarily. Apple does not make music products primarily. Microsoft, all these people. But they have a hand in, honestly, dictating how we're going to shake up the culture of what we consume music on. And so I tell this to people and they get kind of like taken aback when I say the music that you stream all the time and stuff like that, you don't really know why you stream it. Like, unless you're waking up every day curating your playlist, 9 times out of 10 you're listening to the same music you loved in high school and you won't change, or you'll be just listening to, quote unquote, the radio, and you don't really have a taste. And so if you develop a taste, you're going to wind up pigeonholing yourself in either being left behind in like cultural shakeups like this, because there's probably some dude who's doing a TikTok live freestyle that everybody thinks is great, but we're going to miss it because it's a TikTok live stream freestyle and that's how they listen to music. We are looking for like a pre-recorded stream file to look for it to be released with a release date. So it's two different cultural understandings of, or at least processes of listening to music. And so when I tell people that a lot of the things that they're experiencing aren't really in their control, and that if they did want control, it would look a lot different, meaning like you would go to your favorite artist website.com and then actually purchase from them with cash or debit, or credit card or whatever it would be, right? But instead we go through filter after filter after filter after filter after filter to then just get access to the song. So because we don't culturally believe in that process, we don't value it, the tech companies have realized, just like I told you guys about the credit card companies and banking companies, realize that they can take advantage of how you think. Because you think of music this way, they can make money off music this way. Because you don't want to spend, I don't know, let's say $10 on a CD, you'd rather pay $10 a month to get all the music but only listen to your favorites. Well, the tech companies win there. They can basically get a CD a month from you and only offer you access. Like it's up to you whether you get the value out of it at that point. And so they've made the effort to get the value you believe you're getting so easy and so effortless that now when somebody comes along and says, hey, what you're doing isn't enough, we need more, we're met with resistance from the public, from even other musicians.
And artists were forced to tour more to bring in the dough. Meanwhile, streaming was just getting started. Some companies introduced subscription models with limited music libraries, while others, like Pandora, operated as internet radio stations with ads. But the breakthrough came in 2011. Swedish startup Spotify managed to do what the others could not: license a vast library of music. Instead of buying and owning songs and albums, we started listening to ads or paying monthly fees in exchange for access to, essentially, all the music in the world. Over the following years, there was an explosion of services. Artists and labels now count on these services for the bulk of their profits from recorded music, while many argue that artists are not being paid enough.
Okay, this is the point of the whole live stream right here. We're going to play it one more time, and then I'm going to give you my opinion.
Explosion of services. Artists and labels now count on these services for the bulk of their profits from recorded music.
They rely on these services for a bulk of their profits, okay? She didn't say a majority, she said a bulk, which is why they tour. She showed, who is it, Prince up here earlier? I can't even get to him. But yeah, she's basically explaining that artists have been moved. They've been shifted on the chessboard, right? When you had an Elvis, the reason Elvis worked so well was because the people believed in Elvis. There was a lot of controversy about Elvis's originality, but the idea of Elvis worked. And so when you remove the human connection with AI, you remove the value of being a musician, meaning like the pay, and the influence, meaning like you could have control for being a influential artist and things like that of which we're seeing Taylor Swift go through. You kind of remove the overall value culturally for being a musician. Now being a musician is kind of like a poor man's job in the eyes of, let's say, your parents, right? Your parents won't really push you to be one, right? But then you'll have a situation where now you'll have somebody in my position who's in the music industry, probably like a sophomore in terms of things. And I have to kind of explain to younger musicians coming up what to expect and what to think about and what to be considering, that of which the older musicians have already either dealt with or have been phased out of the conversation. Like we haven't had a Nas interview in forever that spoke on music. We've always spoken about blogs, gossip, and things like that. But Nas, at least this one performance I really loved was he did a live performance at the Kennedy Center, which encapsulates how you should be functioning for a lot of what we do here as musicians. You are a rapper who can create lyrics. That's your job, right? But then you can facilitate your networking skills to get with a person that can make the music behind your lyrics. That is how hymns have been written. That's how many songs have been written. And then that's just the basics of just being a musician, right? The next part is employing and hiring people to help you play the music live, which is the Kennedy Center performance. We only get to that point because you did so well in the past making this song so cool, right? Or this music so cool. But then in the grand scheme of things, he brought his father out on stage who wrote for his own songs and stuff like that, and he got to perform live as well. There's more of a economy there when you try to think of music in this angle. But the concept of running your music career that way is not given to the young artists. It's not really explained that way. Usually you'll explain to most people, like just to use Nas as an example, that you're going to be a rapper, you write a bunch of songs, you perform the songs, and then people will like you for the songs, and then eventually you just kind of eat off royalties. You don't really consider, out of all of that, the influence that you get from doing all those things is meant to be invested in others. invested into the community and invested in things that you are passionate about. Usually you'll see that outside of music, like Chameleonaire started getting into technology, rightfully so, because he probably saw all of this coming. You start to see people like Currency, they're into cars. They are like, they're not a hobbyist with cars. They invest in their car culture. But you see a lot of different things. Bun B has restaurants. You got Ludacris, he's into film. There's so many different things that come outside of music that the vehicle of music lets you fund. But when you talk to people about being a musician, it stops right here. Like this girl Shakira, music videos, touring, and streams. It stops right there. And so that's why she's saying they make a bulk of their music from the streams and they have to tour a lot more, because for them to be in what we would respect culturally, the top limelight, that's what it looks like. You don't see people pining for a Nas interview because of what he did for the Kennedy Center performance to then try to emulate that for other musicians. They, for some reason, don't believe that that's a valuable ecosystem to live in with other musicians, whether they're instrumentalists, singers, or whatever. I've seen Snarky Puppy do the exact same thing as Nas in Kennedy Center performance with a bunch of smaller artists in the Family Dinner album collection, where they just employed a bunch of different artists and writers and they all collaborated to make music and albums, and then wound up getting Layla Hathaway an award where she vocalizes with herself as a solo artist. So opportunities like that come from people understanding how to collaborate within their skill set, and then it also breeds innovation, because now you have a situation where I'm really good at what I do and they're really good at what they do, but we have to come together to make something. And so the challenge there forces you to be either a really, really good person or a really, really collaborative person if you're just a shitty person in general. But this is key, and I think it's really hard to sell young musicians on this, because they're always sold on, like the guy in the last video, making a hit easily with AI, making money, getting streams, looking sexy in the music video. Really stupid surface level shit that has nothing to do with music, and more so to do with how you look and bring value to the tech companies.
In the world. Over the following years, there was an explosion of services. Artists and labels now count on these services for the bulk of their profits from recorded music, while many argue that artists are not being paid enough. Although streaming is responsible for huge revenue growth in the industry, tech companies aren't yet making money from it, and it's still not clear how they will, as they continue to prioritize growth over profits. Plus, if history is any clue, it won't be long before new technology shakes everything up again.
And I agree with that. The new tech is on the way. It's definitely going to happen. And I think what the new thing might be, especially with Live Nation being broken up, is going to be more centered around live performances. Maybe it's going to be a situation where like somebody could set up a virtual room where you can actually just attend a concert from where you are. Think of a live stream with sight, smell, and sound, instead of just sight and sound. So I don't know. It'll be a weird thing, but again, it's a cultural thing. Like, do you value musicality, or do you value an immersive experience? Do you value, I don't know, sexuality? Do you value identity politics? Do you value demographics of people that look like you, and stuff like that? Like, how does all that matter? And so let's get into the third clip of the morning. What do we got here?
In the streaming platforms. With an ownership stake, they get a piece of Spotify profits in the form of distributions, and that money doesn't have to trickle down to the artists, writers, producers like royalties do. So the record labels say, hey, Spotify, we need some exposure on Rihanna's new song. How about we agree to 0.002 cents instead of 0.004 cents? And you can now play that song more and owe us less in royalties. Their bottom line will still be the same because they have an ownership stake in the profits.
So let's rewind, and because he was spitting like a rapper right there. He was really. This is another cool thing I noticed as a songwriter. His ability to speak on camera is really good, because he was focused and he was delivering information very clear and concise. Really, really awesome speaker. But that's off of like just 4 seconds of just watching him talk. But he is giving really good information that's going to explain to us how artists get paid.
Influence Spotify by getting on one of the Spotify.
let's go back a little bit more so we
Artists
can get
want
the
the
full
royalty
context.
to be higher. I mean, they used to see real money from album sales and MP3 sales, but
Let's
now
go
they're
about
seeing
right
essentially
here.
squat after 1 million streams.
Let me go a little bit further back. Okay, there we go.
To the label, which almost all new artists wind up falling victim to. It's a vicious cycle. But here's where we are now,
Right
digital music. So let me throw some real numbers at you. You can still buy single songs if you want to, and if you buy an MP3 from iTunes, Amazon, or wherever, that produces a mechanical royalty of 9.1 cents per download.
Okay, freeze. We're gonna break through all this. You buy a song from Amazon. How much is a song from Amazon? Let's just ask Jim and Easy. And again, this is how I use AI. It's a tool. Hey Gemini, I'm talking about how mechanical royalties affect musicians, and I want to know how much is the price of an individual song on most streaming sites today?
That's an interesting point about mechanical royalties. The thing is, most streaming sites don't sell individual songs like you would buy on, let's say, iTunes. Instead, you usually pay a monthly subscription fee for unlimited listening. But if we're talking about per stream payouts, that's really varied between platforms, often just a fraction of a cent per stream. Were you thinking about a specific platform or just generally how it works for the bigger names?
Yeah, a particular platform like Amazon, who would sell albums or singles and things like that. When a person purchases an album, how much would that album or song cost the person that's buying it? And then how much does that mechanical royalty get earned for the artist as well?
Got it. So when you buy an individual download like on Amazon, typically a single song costs somewhere between 99 cents and $1.29. And a whole album is usually around $9.99, maybe a bit more. For the mechanical royalty from that sale, in the US, there's a standard rate set by the Copyright Royalty Board. Right now, it's about 12.5 cents per track. Of course, that royalty gets split between the songwriter and publisher. Is there something specific you were hoping to compare it to, like streaming returns?
No, that was all. We're just reacting to some videos. So, as you can see, Gemini kind of broke it down for us there. That is actually higher than what he's saying. I think this video might be like slightly older. I don't know. It might be a little bit behind this royalty rate, or he's talking about a different company too. But the point is that you pay 99 cents, you pay $1.25, and the artist gets 9.1 or 12.8, I think she said in her example, and then has to split it with the publisher. Now, the reason the publisher part is important to understand because, again, a lot of artists and musicians, very talented, do not publish their own music. So they'll be with the record label for the specific reason of publishing. They may have an online distributor like myself and many other artists where you will be splitting maybe a portion or percentage of the publishing, right? Ideally, you want your own publishing company. But the effort and the resources the best publishing companies have, you would be competing with. So it would behoove you to at least take baby steps and invest into yourself to where you can compete. That's the wise point. We'll look into that in another episode. But the key thing here is that the amount of money you're getting for what you expect from, let's say, the consumer's perspective, it's almost not gonna be justified. Like you would tell a person, hey, buy my $10 album, and they're gonna probably think surface level you're gonna make $10, and then if they think there's some splits going on, you make about 7, 8, 9, right? But in reality, you're making 1, 2 pennies, probably fractions of pennies, and it's supposed to basically compound over the amount of people you get listening and buying these things, that of which doesn't correlate to the amount of effort it takes to get people to spend their money. So you're in a really upside down situation when it comes to working with the tech companies, which is why I said it's a cultural issue. If you know you can go to my website, my Bandcamp, and pay whatever you want, and you don't, then that means you don't support this value that I'm offering to you. It means that I haven't sold you on the price that I'm suggesting or whatever you wish to pay. You would rather pay me 9.1 cents per mechanical royalty. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you evil. It doesn't make you broke. It just makes you the person that would rather pay an artist 9.1 cents in a mechanical royalty than to pay them whatever price they would negotiate with you directly. This is something that, you know, used to be normal in America, where you would have like small businesses and things like that. Like if you had a butcher down the street, you would go down there, and if he had really good livestock that came in with some really good meat, he could negotiate maybe some better prices. If he got better cuts or like better equipment, he could probably, you know, upgrade a little bit of his stuff. But the idea was that you wanted to pay him better prices. You wanted to give him more money, because what you would get in return is better product, better service, maybe faster service, more efficient service. Now it's just a take thing. Like, you just want Beyonce to drop. You don't care what she's going through. You don't care what it takes to make it. And then when you want her to drop, you don't want to pay the max. You want to pay what's in your budget, and your budget's usually not Beyonce's budget. So her bills ain't your bills, and you're trying to pay her bills by, you know, the work that she does, which is why you'll see, like we saw with the technology video previously to this in the last clip, they'll create these packages for the music. It'll have a CD, it'll have a DVD documentary, fucking nude photos, whatever they'll put in there to make this valuable to you, because you don't value the music. You don't value the musicality as much as you would like to think based on your actions.
With an additional 1.74 cents for each minute over 5 minutes in the song. That money then gets split up even further between publishers, writers, artists, etc. The artists make fractions of the royalty here. But we've been shifting out of downloads into streams over the last several years, right?
We ain't even get into taxes.
So let's talk streams. The royalty produced from a stream isn't even a concrete number. It's a range, a tiny range. Spotify is required to put 10.5% of their gross revenues into royalty payments.
Okay, stop right here. So royalties are not fixed. They are not fixed. So that means throughout the year, there's 4 quarters of a year. When I be watching ASCAP talk about all the stuff that the awards are giving and stuff like that, every quarter they give us, you know, a little statement, and they let us know what's coming down the line as far as domestic revenue and international revenue and all these really cool data points. That number that they have to base what they're paying us on is not fixed. It can change. What changes it, right? So let's ask Gemini real quick here. Let's see what it is. Gemini, I just learned that royalties for music streaming, the percentages that artists are paid, is actually not fixed. What changes or what variables are affecting this percentage?
For starters, it depends on the streaming platform itself, since they all have different payment models, and whether a listener is on a free or paid subscription. Your contract with a label, if you have one, and your distributor also matters because they take a cut. Even the listener's country plays a role, since subscription costs and ad revenue vary there. Is there a particular artist you're thinking about, or a platform you have in mind?
Well, no, I'm actually explaining to my audience a bit of how world geopolitical news and actual economics does affect musicians directly. Could you explain more how an artist's country will affect the royalty rate that they get paid?
Absolutely. It comes down to a few things. First, the subscription price itself isn't the same everywhere. It's adjusted to match the economic conditions and what people can afford in different countries. Lower prices mean less money in the pool for royalties. Second, advertising rates, which fund the free tiers, fluctuate globally based on those same ad markets. And finally, sometimes there are local laws or regulations that can impact how revenue is distributed or taxed. Does that help paint a clearer picture?
Yeah, it does. So can you list in terms of high priority to low priority, which one really does affect the royalty rate more for an artist?
Well, it's tough to say which one is always highest priority, but generally the platform's model and the split defined by your contract are usually biggest factors. The general economic strength of the country where the listeners are follows closely, and then ad prices or specific regulations can impact further. Does that help you structure your explanation?
Yeah, it does. And then lastly, what are the top, I say, 5 countries that are leading in paying artists the most in the royalty rate? And what are the factors that determine that for them?
Top paying countries tend to be those with wealthy economies and high subscription rates on streaming platforms. Think countries like the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, and Australia. The major factors are the purchasing power of the consumers, which drives subscription revenue, and also how competitive the advertising market is for those free ad-supported streams. Does that make sense?
Okay, and I just thought of one more question. When you speak about the consumer, how much of the consumer is considered when they're setting the prices for what a stream is worth for an artist or what the price of an entire album is?
That's a great point. The consumer is really central to it. When platforms set subscription prices, they're looking at what the market can bear in each country. The local economy, competition, and overall willingness to pay for music services. If the price is too high, fewer people will subscribe. On the other hand, artist royalty rates are usually calculated as a percentage of that overall revenue. So the higher the subscription price and the more subscribers, the bigger the potential pool for artists. Album prices are a bit different, but they also have to compete with what consumers are willing to pay. Does that help clarify?
Yeah, it does. And this is literally the last question, I promise. The comparison to Netflix's monthly subscription price, is that based on a similar model, or does the movie industry function a little different?
No worries, I'm happy to keep chatting. It's actually quite different. Streaming services like Netflix have to pay licensing fees for the content they host, often for huge chunks of money up front. Artists on the music side get paid on a per-stream basis, depending on how often people listen. The movie and TV industry model is more about buying access to a catalog, rather than paying for individual plays. Does that distinction make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's actually great. Okay, I have no more questions. Thank you. So yeah, that proves to me that we're looking at this a little warpy. What's the word? Wonky here in terms of valuing our catalogs and stuff like that. So if the film industry realizes, okay, if we want to get Martin back on TV, we got to buy all of Martin's catalog, right? We can't just have access to Martin and then just pay him for how many times y'all click the show to watch an episode, right? So what that does for the owners and writers and people who have leverage and invested in the show Martin is it creates them an opportunity to negotiate the value of that entire catalog, versus where musicians, we're stuck with this fluctuating royalty rate based on how we all culturally move, like she said, in your country and how your country is doing and how the people spend money and things like that.
It's supposedly supposed to go to 15.1% by the end of 2022. That produces a bucket of money for royalty payouts. Recently, for Spotify alone, that's about $800 million a year. Then that money is split between all the streams for that year. So on average, the mechanical royalty for a stream is 0.004 cents. But we have an even bigger problem, for artists at least. It's just getting real hard for them to make money. Artists want the royalty to be higher. I mean, they used to see real money from album sales and MP3 sales, but now they're seeing essentially squat after 1 million streams. So the royalty has to increase, right? Well, in many cases, the record labels actually negotiated lower royalty rates from the streaming providers.
What?
Yes. I mean, the record labels could have said, yeah, we want more royalties. 10.5% of revenue just isn't going to cut it.
Yeah.
I mean, Spotify made over $8 billion in 2020, and they only have 6,500 employees. To give you some context, that's about $1.2 million in revenue per employee per year. Compare that to, say, global dominating giant Amazon, and they make about $87,000 in revenue per employee. So Spotify makes 14 times more money per employee than mega-rich zillion-dollar Amazon.
Okay, now we have to address that. This video is old, so it's probably more now. We have to address that. We're gonna play it again, and then I'm gonna tell you what I think.
20, and they only have 6,500 employees. Yeah, we want more royalties. 10.5% of revenue just isn't gonna cut it.
Yeah.
I mean, Spotify made over $8 billion in 2020. And
$8 billion 6 years ago.
They only have 6,500 employees.
They have 6,500 people made $8 billion 6 years ago.
To give you some context, that's about $1.2 million in revenue per employee per year.
And the context he's drawing is not a one-to-one. He's just saying, like, if you were to divide the amount of money per employee, that's how much they would have basically been worth the company.
Compare that to, say, global dominating giant Amazon, and
compared to Amazon,
they make about $87,000 in revenue per employee.
Amazon makes, he said, $87,000.
That's about $1.2 million in revenue per employee per year. Compare that to, say, global dominating giant Amazon, and they make about $87,000 in revenue per employee.
So we're going to break this down real quick, and we're going to do it with Gemini. Gemini, I have another question here, and I want you to kind of draw conclusions, or not conclusions, but connect the dots for me. If Spotify in 2020 made $8 billion with 6,500 employees, and then Amazon's employees are basically earning them about $87,000 a year, what does that mean for the employees of Spotify in terms of future layoffs, and then in terms of how record companies are going to negotiate royalty rates going forward?
Connecting those dots, if Spotify's revenue per employee is significantly lower than Amazon's, it suggests Spotify might be less efficient operationally. That kind of pressure could lead to cost cutting like layoffs as they try to improve that ratio. For royalty negotiations, record companies might push for higher rates, arguing Spotify needs to pay more for the music that drives their platform. But Spotify might argue they can't afford it due to their lower revenue per employee. Does that make sense as a connection?
It does, but I recently learned that record labels actually negotiated for lower royalty rates. Why do you think that is?
That's interesting, and it could be for a few reasons. Sometimes labels might prioritize long-term growth or market share on a platform, and a lower rate could help Spotify expand its user base, which theoretically benefits everyone later. They might also be negotiating for other benefits like promotion or data access that they value more than a higher royalty rate. Does that make sense as a possibility?
It does, but it kind of makes me assume that their priority for paying artists is lower on the tier of earning money in the real estate of being in the music industry.
You could look at it that way, yes. If they're prioritizing other growth factors, then direct artist payout at that moment becomes a secondary concern. It really highlights the different strategies people can have in the business side of things.
So now, how would you, as somebody who is just a computer AI system, how would you suggest a independent artist navigate the music industry with all of the new bots, AI musicians, and record labels negotiating the way they are with royalty rates in order to make a living income?
As an AI, I'd suggest a few things. For starters, focusing on building a strong, direct relationship with your fan base is really key. Things like live performances, merchandise, and direct crowdfunding can create income streams separate from streaming royalties. Also, be smart about your contracts and diversify your presence online. It's about being resourceful and not relying on just one source, you know?
Yes, I've been explaining that to my audience as well. Okay, thank you, Gemini. So yes, Gemini kind of showed you a lot of what I was saying, is that the reason you're seeing your favorite artists start podcasts or do what I'm doing, the reason you'll see your favorite artists selling alcohol or trying to get into like acting and movies and stuff like that, and they don't drop albums for years, and then I point it out and then we act like they didn't drop albums for years. The reason you're seeing that stuff is because they're noticing what I'm noticing. But in order for them to say it means that it would ruin the relationships with said company. Like, think about it. If I was, I don't know, super rapper guy, whoever, right? And I get a lot of plays on Spotify, but then I realize Spotify actually is not prioritizing paying me at least what I believe I'm owed, right? And then my record labels are negotiating for lower royalty rates, that of which I will then be paid less by Spotify. When you see that happen, how do you point that out to the public? How do you point that out to your record label and say, I need change, after you've either signed into a contract that doesn't allow you to have leverage here because you're not an investor, you technically work for a record label that's negotiating for you? Or how do you say this without ruining the relationship that record labels and tech companies have as far as as Gemini said, why they would negotiate for a lower royalty rate. So her suggestion was that they're possibly negotiating lower rates for other value points like data or access to resources and things like that. But if you don't get access to the resources because you're not a record label, you're signed to the record label, then how much value is that for you as an artist? And if you see that, if you notice that shit as an artist, what recourse do you have? And usually it's to go independent or to play the game. And that's why you'll see a lot of artists, they just folded their arms and stopped releasing music as fast, because you can't A, beat AI robots, and then B, you can't also compete with the growing culture that I've explained earlier of people that just don't value being a better musician. Your favorite artist is going on a Kai Cenat stream before they will get back in the studio. Your favorite artist is learning how to fucking, I don't know, build a new rocket with Elon Musk, or they're trying to get into politics or something like that, long before they get into the room that this man is sitting in and actually pick up something and work on things. They won't even switch genres of music anymore. Like, you don't even see white people trying to rap anymore. It's gotten that bad. So just keep that in mind as we go to this.
About $1.2 million in revenue per employee per year. Compare that to, say, global dominating giant Amazon, and they make about $87,000 in revenue per employee. So Spotify makes 14 times more money per employee than mega-rich zillion-dollar Amazon. So why would record labels agree to such insanely low royalty payouts when Spotify profits are astronomical? Well, glad you asked. Royalties get split up a dozen ways a Tuesday. The label gets some, the publisher gets some, the writers get some, producers get some. The guy that brought beer into the studio that day that said, hey, if you sing I'm cool in the chorus instead of we're cool, well, he gets some, change a word, take a third. So the label doesn't keep all of that tiny royalty. They also have the problem that Radio Payola just isn't producing guaranteed hits like it used to, so they have to influence Spotify.
I like this guy. He knows ball.
By getting on one of the Spotify curated playlists. Gosh, who to pay? Those illegal payments will be a lot harder to hide than those going to all the different media executives and program directors that bark orders down to 850 radio stations. But don't worry, the record giants are really creative. In a slick, devilish move, the big labels took up ownership stakes in the streaming platforms.
Okay, boom, bang, bing, pow, zing, there it is. He pointed out what I was saying earlier, probably like 3 days ago. Are you a consumer? Are you a producer? Or are you an investor? And record labels realize we will never be consumers. The record label said we will never ever be consumers. You gonna be the consumer. And so what they decided to do, instead of paying artists more based on the money they're gonna get from working with the tech companies like Spotify and Apple Music, they decided to say we're gonna pay the artists a little less. And then we're going to buy stake in the company that's going to help us pay the artists a little less. And so, again, they're not evil for doing it. It's just that we have a culture of not valuing musicianship, which then causes businesses to make very, very pragmatic decisions like, well, we can't pay artists. They're not good. And then if they are good, you don't support the good ones, so we really shouldn't be dumping money into them. What we will be dumping money into is the relationship that gets us money, which is not with the artist, it's with the tech company. So, man, he said it, and it was clear. This is an old video, so it proves that it's been true for a minute.
Down to 850 radio stations. But don't worry, the record giants are really creative. In a slick, devilish move, the big labels took up ownership stakes in the streaming platforms. With an ownership stake, they get a piece of Spotify profits in the form of distributions, and that money doesn't have to trickle down to the artists, writers, producers like royalties do.
Boom, baby, and you get to pocket all of it, right? You basically just cut off the little faucet that you would call a streaming royalty. You just got to turn that little leak off right there, and it helps the record label so much. They can make so much more money. Now, here's the point that I was saying earlier. If you see that as an artist, if you just watch this video and you're signed to a record label and you're like, wait, whoa, what did y'all vote for when it comes to the royalty rate? And you find out that they negotiated lower and your record company now has stake in Spotify and you don't, what do? what's the recourse for you as an artist going forward? You got bills to pay. You got a girl that wants to go out to eat. You got kids that want to go to school. You got, diaper and milk money you need to make, right? What do you do? So what they do is they just sit there in the contract and then just kind of work in other industries. You'll see what's called quiet quitting from musicians, basically. And so you'll see them just working regular jobs. They'll start working in different industries, like I said, getting into acting and all this other stuff. But the point of what I'm trying to show you here is that it only happens and can be changed by how we culturally understand music, right? So I use this example a lot. There's a girl today. It's like 10:30 a.m. on a Friday. She's going to be in a New York City subway trying to play the cello. And she's going to have a little stand that shows I went to school for music and I got a nice little degree, and she's going to dress nice and look really pretty, and her instrument's going to be polished and good to go, tuned up. And you know what people are going to do? They're just going to tip her what they think she's worth. She can't negotiate anything, right? Because she's just on the street playing, right? We call that busking as musicians, right? I've busked before, and it's really, really, really fun and really social experience. But what you'll kind of realize is that the conversations you're having with people on a regular is that their appreciation for music has not a lot to do with your musical skill, because you have to be good to be a decent busker, but it has more so to do with your passion to be good. People really appreciate a musician that takes their musicianship serious. And that made a lot of the money we made busking come out, because we were trying to actually sound good, look good, and perform good for the public. We weren't just out there trying to get money like the dude who emailed to say, I got an AI hit. What do I do with it? Right. But it told me that the people who would make a difference in this conversation, the people that would help make a change as far as consumers, they're out there. It's just that they either don't know this information is happening to artists because they just assume their favorite artist is doing well because they're their favorite artist and their participation in everything we're doing is working, or the effort it takes to understand this is already too much because life is lifing. Okay. So this is going to be very, very important for musicians to understand early. Very early, because you'll be in situations where you've seen artists like a Nicki Minaj or Lil Wayne. They've been in the same record label for so long. I would like to assume that they're investors in the record label, but there are other artists on the label that aren't, and they're being affected by the business decisions of said record label because it is a corporation. Do not view your record label, even if it is just you and your homies, independent or not, as just you and your homies making music. Your record label can be represented just like a corporation. You can make business decisions just like a corporation. You can get partnerships and investments, and it will affect people's lives just like a corporation. So what's going to tend to happen here, as record labels make more money with the stake that they're getting from Spotify and Apple Music, Spotify and Apple Music is going to start moving towards AI artists. And then they have to figure out how to monetize this with the new laws. And all of that is going to be figured out over the heads of artists, because artists are not in the conversation. And then when you have conversations with artists, they don't want to be in the conversation. That means they no longer can just sit in the studio and practice and rap and drink lean and hang out cool and hang out with the groupies. You now have to get up in the morning and go to these meetings and actually have conversations, that of which I'm trying to implore here on YouTube, right? So when you start having conversations like the gentleman here in this video, it gets a lot deeper than just, oh, what's that guitar in the back? It gets a lot deeper than what plugins are you using. Like, it's not important anymore. So this is a very, very important topic.
And program director is that bark orders down to 850 radio stations. But don't worry, the record giants are really creative. In a slick, devilish move, the big labels took up ownership stakes in the streaming platforms. With an ownership stake, they get a piece of Spotify profits in the form of distributions, and that money doesn't have to trickle down to the artists, writers, producers like royalties do. So the record labels say, hey, Spotify, we need some exposure on Rihanna's new song. How about we agree to 0.002 cents instead of 0.004 cents?
And that's how I explain to people that when you get on Apple Music for the first time, you just see Drake, 2 Chainz, Busta Rhymes. I'm just naming artists. You see all these people like promoted to you, Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, and stuff like that. It's because their record labels have negotiated that real estate to say, put me up on the front. Why did they get up to the front? Who knows what's in the contract? But one of the things could be lower royalty rates being paid out in access for positioning, real estate, marketing opportunities, because everybody's going to Spotify for music right now. You're not going to the artist websites anymore. So they're not investing in the artist websites anymore. They're not doing that. So artists having clothing brands, all this different stuff like that, that is chump change compared to what they're expecting to come down the pipeline for getting stakes in these tech companies.
And you can now play that song more and owe us less in royalties. Their bottom line will still be the same because they have an ownership stake in the profits. Hopefully, you see the problem. When royalties go down, payments to the artists go down. Labels still get their money, if not more, only they don't have to share that new money with the artists. It's the new form of payola. So when I say the music industry is broken, I'm actually being quite nice here. It's severely broken, and it's more...
And I used to point this out when I was in college and I was learning about royalty rates. People would kind of point out how low it was, and I would be like, well, it kind of makes sense. You're just kind of like streaming a song. There's no effort to it until you realize whose music is also being streamed as well. And then you're like, okay, I thought you would be getting paid more, or I thought your record label would negotiate for more and things like that. So it gets very, very, very broken, like he said.
More crooked than Lombard Street. And it doesn't really matter the genre. Hip hop, top 40, pop, CCM, country, the rules are all the same. Pay to play. And the big labels have the advantage. So what's the fix? Well, things are changing even as you're watching this. More and more artists are deciding to do life without a label. They write and many of them record on their own, and the cost of recording equipment has never been cheaper.
That's what I do.
Many book their own gigs and are paid accordingly. Some
That's what I do.
create YouTube and TikTok channels to promote their own work.
That's what I do.
One thing for sure is that the radio listenership is on the decline. Dependence on major labels is on the decline. And what's happening right now that has never happened in the past is that new music literally has to compete toe-to-toe with older timeless hits.
That's what I say. When I tell people they're playing the trumpet at church on Sundays, like, you're competing with the greatest musicians in the world and you're live on television every week. Like, you do not downplay yourself, because you will allow everybody else to downplay you. If you're in your room rapping your little song for TikTok, you should be considering yourself to be sit right next to Nas, Tupac, Biggie. Otherwise, you will be thinking that you're making some bullshit, and it will be treated as bullshit. And so, because we've lost that culturally, because we've lost this kind of like desire for being great, not even just on a hip hop thing, but like if you just have a rock band, being a really, really dope rock band is gone now, or at least a majority of people don't feel that way, because they don't see the value of being a really great rock band. Nobody gets respected for hitting a cool solo, the epic shows or nothing like that. Like, it's rare. You gotta, like I was saying when I was busking, you gotta like really, really touch the people to find them, because they're just not out and about no more, and it's not easy to get to, because we would rather just stream you on YouTube. So you will be competing with the greats like Aretha Franklin, Mariah Carey. Every Christmas, she's knocking y'all out the park. Every Christmas, y'all don't stand a chance. But if you sit up here and act like you're not playing that game, you're gonna lose every time.
Dependence on major labels is on the decline. And what's happening right now that has never happened in the past is that new music literally has to compete toe-to-toe with older timeless hits. My daughter, who is in high school, smack dab in the middle of Gen Z, is the prime target age for new music. But she makes her own playlist. She might have Taylor Swift or Doja Cat's latest song on her list, but that's right in between songs like Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, AC/DC's Back in Black, or Macklemore's Thrift Shop.
Michael fucking Jackson's Thriller. Like, yeah.
You want Gen Z's attention? Well, they've already picked up on the fact that most of the music on the radio is contrived bubblegum-filled boxes of formulaic crap, so they just take their cues from what's getting passed around on social networks like TikTok or Instagram.
Which creates a kind of like world of a musical taste that doesn't have principles, right? When you would say I'm a hip hop fan, like there's like a line drawn in terms of like what people would expect you to like and not like, right? When you tell people, oh, I'm into heavy metal or death metal and stuff like that, we can kind of be like, okay, we know what you kind of like and what you listen to. We can name some artists, some music, maybe some kind of sounds and things like that. When social media influences your musical tastes, how does it influence your musical tastes? Is it because the clip is viral and the social media platform is pushing viral clips to you, similar to how Apple Music would tell you to listen to Drake when you first buy it or get on the app? Or has it more to do with your personal characteristics? Like how they would say people watch violent movies are violent, or people who are sad listen to sad music. Is that how it works? Do hip hop people only listen to hip hop music when they get on social media? Are they only exposed to hip hop music? Because if that's the case, then that means they're not getting an authentic reality sent to them. They're getting one kind of like curtailed for them, specifically designed by an algorithm, that of which is not a music company. It's a tech company. So to have people culturally value something like a really, really dope rock band is way harder now. That rock band has to go viral. That rock band has to have a clean resume, because if someone commits a crime in the rock band, that creates a stigma. It has nothing to do with their music, their equipment for music, their live performances. That's why when, honestly, you go on Facebook or most internet music gigs and performance sites, you'll see performances you've never heard of, because a lot of bands have realized, yeah, if you want to get people that can't actually care, you got to go out and find them.
Because of technology, the artists aren't getting paid what they used to, but thanks to technology, Gen Z has more good music at their fingertips and isn't waiting on the program directors from one or two monopolistic companies to tell them what to listen to. That model is dying, and Gen Z doesn't listen to albums like Gen X did. They listen to playlists. Outside of the Spotify curated playlist, the world of streaming playlists are infinitely decentralized.
So now, why would you create an album? This was kind of exposed when Chris Brown made that huge big ass album, and everybody was like, I'm not listening to all of this. So what they did is they just picked the album apart a la carte, which he probably didn't mind, but at the end of the day, why would you make an album? You know, what's the point if, you know, again, culturally, you guys don't value albums. Like if an album drops, you're just going to pick it apart a la carte, or you're not going to even buy the album in terms of the value it's supposed to have. Like if I get a 12-track album, 4, 5, 6, 7 feature artists on there that are top hitters, and I got the best producers mixed and mastered, I got an artist to do the album artwork, and you want to pay 9.1 cents a mechanical royalty per track. And it's like, okay, why would I do that?
And this is a great thing. So I think the future of music is bright. The future is better music. Because that song that's going to be released next month by some here today, gone tomorrow, controversy charged artist, it will have to compete for space on millions of separate playlists with songs like Adele's Easy on Me, which, by the way, was released about 5 minutes ago and already has over 100 million streams, producing $1 million in royalties.
And we already figured out how that works. A lot of those streams have nothing to do with how good the song is. Being new, being viral, being influential has way more to do with why that song got so popular than it did her singing or her musical talent. And we got one more clip for y'all we're going to go over, but this has been a dope conversation. Let me know if you're still here in the chat and you're enjoying. But we got one more clip, and I think this one is actually going to be about the 360 deal and how you can see how we already just seen record labels lower the amount of money they want to pay artists. They also sneakily, I'll say sneakily because we saw it coming, they sneakily snuck artists out of the conversation when it comes to putting them in the stakes conversation for investing in the tech companies that facilitate how you guys are going to listen to music, because you don't go to record stores. I know you don't. You open your phone and you probably go to YouTube Music and you just hit shuffle, and then it is what it is. Like you said, the Gen Z kids are curating playlists, so you're not even looking for like some kind of artist career. You're not looking for an artist experience. You're just trying to satisfy your appetite. So there's no girl who's like on tour and you're hoping she does good on tour, and then when she gets home you're going to support her homecoming show. There's none of that anymore. Now you'll get the hit that you heard on TikTok that just went viral, and you'll sing the little hook from it, and then you'll save it to your playlist and scroll away, and we're gone. You'll never see us again, right? So this is what I mean by like culturally we're not valuing musicianship, what a musician is. When you see people getting ready for a gig or a show like that, and it comes down to like just you're not going to attend the show in terms of like supporting it. You're not going to support promoting the show, whether it's word of mouth or helping pass out flyers and stuff like that. These are things that culturally help the musicians stay active and help artists stay in the community. What you're starting to see is more and more musicians have to get online, so you won't see them in the public, which removes the human connection that I was explaining you get from busking, that of which we will be removed from the creation process. So now when you hear music, you don't even think a human made it. You probably don't even appreciate it if it is made from a human. You'll think, it's a human. He probably got mistakes made all up in this song. It's out of tune or something. So culturally, we have an issue here. Like, we would like to blame the tech companies, like, oh, Spotify bad. Oh, record companies don't love to pay artists. Well, the reason they see value in these decisions is based on the culture that we facilitate. We think it's really, really, really dope to pay artists based on the streams we give them. Now, if I say it like that, a lot of people will be like, well, no, I really love Beyonce and I really appreciate La Russell and his independence and I like Russ's music. But when you really break down what you represent to these artists in terms of the effort it takes for them to get you to represent what you do to these artists, then you'll realize that you're kind of undercutting a lot of the people you say you love. It is what it is, Mo, but we'll get into the last section. It's a hard conversation to have with musicians because musicians like to tout this I'm doing fine kind of attitude. It's all good. Don't worry about me. I'm a dude, and all that other cute ego shit. But in reality, when you hear these numbers, you can't, like, it's like a rapper trying to say he's really rich and his chain is fake. It doesn't make sense. Like, you're not really rich, you're frugal. You know what I'm saying? Like, artists aren't fine. They're active, but they're not fine. So let's get into the last one.
So they evolved the record deal into the 360 deal. 360 meaning everything, which means now the record label gets a huge piece of the pie on not just music sales of an artist, but all merchandise, concerts, and basically anything you're doing as an artist to make money. Now, keep in mind that $1 million record deal is not $1 million. They woo the artist in with big dollar signs, but then through some legal sleight of hand and with all the leverage in the world, they pay practically nothing to the artist. That water bottle that someone drank while in the studio, that comes out of the $1 million. In fact, all the studio time does too. Hotels, travel, all the costs associated with living, writing, recording, and playing out, that all comes out of the record deal advance.
Okay, again, this dude is spitting like the best rapper in the world right now. So we're going to slow him down and go back over the information. I think you guys need to, again, what he's laying out. If I tell people this, they'll be like, oh yeah, I knew this. Yeah, facts. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you get in advance. Yeah, you pay all this. But what you're not connecting is how impactful that is. Like, it's like when you hear people talk about car payments, like they'll just say the number and then just think you're not supposed to react to that big ass 3-digit number they just said that comes out their pocket every month. So we're gonna break down what he said, but I just want you to compare it in two ways. I'm an independent musician. I'm not signed. I want you to just think all the shit he's gonna say that comes out of their advance, and then consider the record label paying for it, and then consider me going and swiping my card for this. Okay, just consider that when you think about, what makes an artist livable, or what makes an artist's salary livable. Okay. Why would I pay an artist X amount of money? And what does an artist expect to get for their work? Okay. So we do this with DoorDash. We do this with any other small business. We do this with real estate licenses, insurance licenses. You figure out how much money you're going to make and why and how it makes sense for you to do what you're doing, right? After we break this down, I want you to let me know in the comments, would you rather be a signed artist or an independent artist? And after we break this down, that's when you will come to your conclusion, more than likely.
People would award a good artist with, let's say, $1 million record deal. And that deal was to produce a set number of albums that they would
set number of albums. I'm gonna break it down each step. So you're expected to make a set number of albums. Pick a number in your head that you'll say yes to this $1 million deal.
Record, produce, distribute, and sell. But what happens when distribution goes from hard goods to digital and sales go to, well, no sales?
So you have $1 million advance in your pocket. Your record label expects you to make a certain number of albums. And then let's say you get signed in 1999. In about 3, 4, 5 year span, you go from CDs to iPods. And you still need to make this $1 million worth of money worth it for them to give you.
Just streams. Record labels were dealt another, what should have been, death blow. Truly, these record labels have more lives than a Buddhist cat. So they evolved the record deal into the 360 deal. 360 meaning everything, which means now the record label gets a huge piece of the pie on not just music sales of an artist, but all merchandise, concerts, and basically anything you're doing as an artist to make money.
So, okay, pause. What he's suggesting is that at a point before the 360 deal, it would only be about the music. The fucking music. It would only be about the music at a certain point, right? But because record labels are corporations in a capitalistic country, they've realized, we're not making as much as we need to make to battle the industry circumstances, right? So we need to make more money. And the way they figure that out is, well, we have this basic creative engine called an artist, which now would be an AI engine going forward. But we have this artist here. And this artist can make songs, they can dance, they can make people move, people love their face, all kinds of stuff. Like you can sell water to a well with this artist. What they realize is that, well, if he can do all of that, let's make him do all of that for us. Because what he was originally doing was just giving us music, and that's all we needed from him. We would do the music, he could keep his merch and all that stuff like that. But let's shine up a new deal and call it the 360 deal and make it to where, okay, we will get cut on the music, and we know your music is a part of the merchandise you sell. So that means that kind of, it relates. So we're going to need a cut on that too. And of course, as a record label, we know in order for you to make the best music, we would have to facilitate you with the state of the art equipment in order for you to compete with a Mariah Carey, Nas, or Taylor Swift. So let's go ahead and we'll fund you your studio time, that of which you don't have to worry about. We'll advance you the money. So it goes on and on and on and on. And then what happens is the quote unquote independence you had as an artist has been exploited. It's been just eaten. It's in everybody else's hands. Now, some would argue, well, you never were an independent artist when you got signed. But the issue is that he's highlighting in this video that at a certain point, there was a level of agency you were expected to have over your career. Meaning, yes, we're going to push the songs, but if your merch sales suck, we're not in control of that. Yes, we're going to push the songs, but if I don't know if music videos were a part of it at a time, but if like your music videos aren't streaming well, that's not our issue. But now, because of a combination of artists not being musically inclined, because we don't value artists that are musically inclined, they are now having to have their hands held through their career by a record label that I would like to call a bank. And the bank is going to loan them out money so they could be an artist and learn to be an artist, because they're not actually an artist. And then when they finally invest enough into themselves to actually do something, they actually are in debt to the record label. And the record label is going to make money off of their likenesses and the copyright, and also anything that comes from the products that they've made together. On top of what we just talked about, the record labels are then negotiating to pay them less in streams, so that way they can spend more money to buy stake in the companies that are going to allow the artists to make this music and make more products like merchandise, streaming apps, and things like that. Again, I noticed this in college, but it was a real weird conversation to point out to people that really love this artist that Megan Thee Stallion twerking on Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok stories was a way to keep her in the algorithm. It really didn't sit right with fans and music enthusiasts that was how artists needed to work today. They really believed that it was going to be for her to just rap better, make more music. No, that's not what you guys value. You're not going to spend more money. What you're going to do is you're going to open the same tech company's app and then see a new product, that of which you're just going to stream once or twice, add to a playlist like you said Gen Z does, and she's going to get a fraction of a penny. You're not waiting to go to meganthestallion.com to see what her new music is. She has to tell you it's dope, just like Apple Music putting Drake in front of you. She has to go out, look cute, be cute, and advertise for it, and then tell you this music is dope, and then you will go check it out. And then possibly you might even still be a hater at the same time. So that's why you'll see people like Megan Thee Stallion doing like Planet Fitness sponsorships, clothing sponsorships, and doing all this other stuff because they have to make an income. They have to get paid. There is no culture of people big enough to support this big ass industry's demand for product over quality.
360 meaning everything, which means now the record label gets a huge piece of the pie on not just music sales of an artist, but all merchandise, concerts, and basically anything you're doing as an artist to make money. Now, keep in mind that $1 million record deal is not $1 million. They woo the artist in with big dollar signs, but then through some legal sleight of hand and with all the leverage in the world, they pay practically nothing to the artist. That water bottle that someone drank while in the studio, that comes out of the $1 million. In fact, all the studio time does too. Hotels, travel, all the costs associated with living, writing, recording, and playing out, that all comes out of the record deal advance.
Living, writing, playing out, and recording. All of that comes into play. And that's before we get into you streaming it.
It's a recoupable advance, not a paycheck. So the entire idea of a record deal is as shady as all get out. You can watch artists dish on their record deals for hours on end if you want. They are thick contracts that benefit the label, not the artist.
And that's a fault of the artist not understanding that of which I'm explaining to you now before they sign the contract. Like, there's a reason you'll see, it's rare, but you'll hear some songs where like artists will be like, oh, these record labels try to sign me. And I said, no, because the more business savvy musicians can negotiate better deals. Like when you get into a deal, it can be a really good beneficial thing if you know what you're doing and you know what to ask for and you know how to, deliver. The problem is like he said, people will see that advance number and then they'll just get to work, and then where they'll be working on is useless. It's valueless. It has no leverage. And the companies aren't in the business of fixing that for you. So if you're an artist and you fuck that up and you owe them money or you're not getting as much as you want, they're not in the business of helping you get out of that. That's why your favorite artists aren't here anymore. You don't hear them making music. You're like, oh man, what happened to so-and-so? They have to go back home and then rebuild all that shit and with the missed time, right? So like for me, I didn't invest so much in like equipment and stuff like that. I invested more in like the legal side of stuff, right? Structuring and things like that. So a lot of the works that I'm doing now is really built around passion projects. But when it comes down to developing this kind of like business for myself, it's in the branding. It's all in the branding. Like all the different things that I do, it's all in the branding. But many artists, they're going to struggle because they're going to have to figure out, okay, I don't own my brand. I don't own my recordings. I don't own the equipment. I don't own the studio. The guy who works in the studio is actually working for the company. Like there's so many different factors that you're not investing in that is leaving you as a liability for most companies, that of which means they're not going to hire you, let alone pay you a higher royalty rate over working with the tech companies, because you're just not that much of a value add to a company that can just make a bunch of, money for you just at the click of a button with your consumers, producers, consumers, and investors.
Artists need to think of a record deal as a contracted investment. If a band signs
I just said it. Do it again, bro. Say it again.
dish on their record deals for hours on end if you want. They are thick contracts that benefit the label, not the artist. Artists need to think of a record deal as a contracted investment.
Contracted investment. There's an ROI, there's an expectation, there's an investor, there's an investee, there's terms, there's legalese. Like if your favorite rapper isn't saying these words in conversation with you, let alone the music, it's safe to believe he doesn't understand any of the stuff that this man is saying. And then when it's time to get him in front of a table with an executive, a music label, record label executive, that means they execute on business decisions, they won't know what they're getting themselves into. It's safe to assume that.
If a band signs $1 million 3-album deal, all the costs associated with living, traveling, recording come out of that million, which is not all paid out up front. Everything down to the water you drink and the snacks you eat in the studio come out of that recoupable advance. And how long does it take for an artist to make 3 albums? Well, the average time for 3 albums is 63 months.
63 months. AI is whooping that time's ass. All through the roof. So, again, if you see this as an artist, what do you do?
Just over 5 years. And don't forget about taxes. And a band only gets about 30% of their advance up front.
Like you said, forget about taxes. That we're covering taxes, but we're not even covering taxes right now. Taxes is a whole different conversation.
A band will not only have to become a major success, but they'll have to stretch that money incredibly thin to not go into debt to the label, which almost all new artists wind up falling victim to.
And then when they do fall victim to it, you know what you guys as consumers say? What happened? You'll then just be like, man, what happened to that one band we used to listen to all the time? What happened to that one artist? And when you look up and they work in a regular job, or their habits get to them, or their family turned on them and they not dope no more, or they just a regular ass person again, you ask, what happened?
It's a vicious cycle. But here's where we are now, digital music. So let me throw some real numbers at you.
So this was pretty much a dope scene. We actually got back to the part where we were in the last clip here in this part. So we're going to actually bring it back home and we're going to close it out. But yes, this was a dope conversation. Shout out to everybody in the chat. But I do want to know, now that you've learned everything that you learned so far, I've broken down this past week, I've broken down all the changes that's happening for musicians and artists and things like that going forward. I got two questions. The first one being, which would you rather be? Like if you were to get into an invested contract where you were expected, let's pick a cool number, like $3 million. Like you were expected to get $3 million. That's a big number. You could pay a lot of bills. You could do a lot of cool shit with your life with $3 million. Would you rather get that $3 million as an independent artist or as a signed artist? That's the first question, because it tells you where you think you will lay in the consequences that come from what we just learned here, from all these different clips and things like that, even from the past week. And then the second question is, if you are a consumer or a fan, we call ourselves fans, but if you're a fan of music, has this changed how you view your favorite artist this past week? Like when you think about, like my parents, they have favorite artists, and they have this kind of relationship with their favorite artist that seems more like a classmate from college type of relationship. And then I noticed, like he was saying in the last clip, people that are Gen Z, they have more of a like cashier at McDonald's relationship with their favorite artists. So what I'm saying is that, does this change how you plan to invest in what you find valuable in the music industry? Like I found 6 artists, I think, in the past like 5-6 years, and I've just been streaming only their music, really. And it's less to do with trying to make my playlist. It's just more so to do with, okay, if I know I like this, then let's invest in this. And one of the things I noticed is that it's not from me, but at least I've noticed that me participating in the artists that I enjoy brings a more fruitful relationship with what the artist puts out musically. Like it's hard for me to dislike music without objectivity. So being able to do that with artists I actually like is a practice. Like you have to turn on and off certain parts of your brain. Like you have to say, oh man, I really like this song, it's dope. And then to say, okay, I'm gonna like this song in today's industry, you have to really think about, okay, if I put this song in my playlist, what does it do for the artist? Do I care? And if I don't care, should the artist care? And then when the artist starts caring and they start making different changes, like putting out less music, or they pivot and start live streaming, should you feel a type of way that you've now lost that of which you valued? I think about that sometimes when I get like a one-off song and I'm like, man, this is dope, and then I look up the artist and it's like they haven't put out shit for like 6 years. That's kind of the feeling that you get. You're kind of like, oh man, I can't even be a fan of this. So let me know what you think. This was a dope week. I will be back doing these on Monday. Monday we'll probably be shooting for the same morning time. We'll make some adjustments this weekend, and then I will see you guys this evening on Twitch for the gaming stream. Make sure you subscribe on the gaming YouTube channel. I'm over there acting a plum fool, acting like a nerd, a big kid, and things like that. But we'll be doing some live streams over there. I'm planning that later. That's a whole nother show on more technological stuff, making money on games and stuff. But we will see you guys tonight. I'm out. This is Musician Talks with DameSmiff.